Aloha and welcome to Ku Punahou, that is New Kupuna, a wordplay on Ka Punahou. I'm Chris Yano, your host, and this is a talk story podcast by, for, and about us, the Punahou class of 69. It's a privilege to reach this age and realize, hey, we are the kupuna now. What kinds of responsibilities do we take on in this position, and what kind of legacy might we, as Ku Punahou, offer? Welcome, Chris. So glad to have you on the show. And, I'm sure many of our class remember you as a tall, tanned, easygoing athlete, able to get along with everyone. But there was more going on than that laid-back guy. For example, you earned a PhD from the Urban Institute, Cincinnati, Ohio, in cross-cultural psychology. But tell me about the road to getting a PhD. What propelled you there?
Well, I'm laughing right now because just listening to your introduction, I didn't think of myself as that necessarily. So when you say that, it kind of throws me off a little. But as far as answering your question, why I got a PhD was because I was out with my old girlfriend and my mother, and I was drunk, and I said something about, I'm going to get a PhD. And I like to think that if I say something, I'm going to do it. So now I was stuck. Like now I'm thinking, well, how the hell am I going to get this PhD? So then, I looked at different possibilities, and that's really why I got a PhD. It wasn't to advance. It was really kind of because I flapped my lips, and now I thought I got to follow through.
It's like you dared yourself.
Yeah, I wasn't very smart, but I did it. So I followed through and went and got a PhD.
But not everybody would have a PhD as a goal. I mean, even for myself, it just sounds like too much work.
Well, interesting. I'm thinking about that question. I coached for a long time, and I challenged the kids who I coached that you need to try to obtain at the highest level you can. So the PhD is the highest at an intellectual level. When you're coaching, normally it's the physical. But, because I think of the other aspects, the physical and the mental.
Right.
I thought, well, if I'm telling the kids this, then maybe I should practice it myself. So I was always aware that the highest level is a PhD. So then when I shut my mouth off, I thought, well, maybe I better follow through. And I did.
Yeah. Fantastic. Now, Chris, when you made this dare to yourself about getting a PhD, how old were you?
Gosh, I don't know. I think I might have been in my 30s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And can you tell us something about what you decided to do for your PhD and what was it about? I mean, this is not a job interview, believe me. But I think people might be interested to hear what you ended up doing research on.
I think the title was "You Local What?"
Yeah.
And what it was the pursuit of what does local mean? And everybody said pretty much, I don't know anybody said I could do it. Everybody said, no, there's no way you can do this. And so which made it more of a challenge. And so the question then was, how was I going to break this down and achieve that? So that's what I did. I put it together and I wrote it, and it exists.
And how did you come up with the topic? Why that topic of being local?
At that point, I was doing mostly domestic violence classes, and a lot of local guys, and you looked at violence and stuff like that. So I had a curiosity, exactly what it is. And also, it was to look at it. It was also like a self-examination. How do I fit into Hawaii? Because, normally you talk about the Hawaiians, right? But then what about the rest of us? Where do we fit? Because, I don't have any Hawaiian ancestry. So it's how you fit. So then it became that challenge.
Yeah. And Chris, this might be part of your research or maybe separate from your research. Is there a big difference between local for a guy and local for a female?
No one ever asked me that question.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not quite sure how to answer it.
This is not, doesn't have to be based on research, but just in your mind.
In my mind, there's some rugged local wahinis. Then there's some tough guys, but there's also gentle guys. And So I'm not sure how to answer that. I didn't look at it as far as a gender thing.
Okay. And in your mind, if you go to a school like Punahou, are you local?
Sure, you can be.
How do you prove you're local? And now I look like I'm doing research on you, but I'm not. I just wanted.
Well, you know what? I did like interviews with groups, and then I did individuals, and I didn't know where I was going to go, right? And so how I ended up is I broke it down into 4 criteria. Because the first one you look at, were you born and raised in Hawaii?
Yeah.
And so that's a reason for being local or not. But if you look at it, there's some people who could be born and raised here, and you look at them, hey, they're not local. And somebody who can move from the mainland, and you think they're local, then you find, oh, no, they're born on the mainland. And so I think that one you got to throw out. That criteria you got to throw out. It's not necessarily whether you're born or raised in Hawaii. And the second one was ethnicity. Well, if you're Hawaiian, well, then you are local. But there's some Hawaiian guys or women who, they don't seem very local. They're, I don't know, maybe Haimakimak or something. And then you might have some Hawaiians who are like born on the mainland, and they come here and you think, oh, that guy's a really local guy. But you find out they're not born here, but they are Hawaiian. So to me, you got to throw out ethnicity too. And the one that I wasn't expecting to discover was, I think, socioeconomic. That you tend to think of people local as people who don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So then you ask the question, hey, that guy driving that Tesla or Mercedes, is he local? And some guys can be very local. And some guys can drive bus-up jalopy cars, and they're not local. So to me, you got to throw socioeconomic. And so the 4th criteria I've called characteristics. And that was, what you eat, how you speak, how you treat people. And to me, that was the main criteria. Broke down, and I broke down to 25 of them. And I'm sure there are more, but those are the most important ones, I think. So it came down really to the characteristics. That differentiates one person from the other. Because somebody, again, could be wholly from the mainland, but they're very local. That guy, he's a local guy. And but somebody could be Hawaiian and grew up on the west side or something, and could be quite sophisticated and Haimakimak, that guy, he's not local. So those are the 4 criteria I broke down.
Yeah.
Broke down into.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, could you ever open a school for someone from the mainland on how to become local?
Interesting. I was just talking to a friend of mine who was with a DOE for a long time, and she has a copy of the dissertation. We spoke last week. And the reason I had given her a copy was to take a look at, people come in from the mainland, and then they move, they could say they start teaching out on the west side, and they get run out of there.
Yeah.
So I said, take a look at it and see if it'd be useful. And as we spoke, she goes, yeah, it could be useful. Now she's passing it on to someone to take a look at, the person who does training for people coming in. And I think what I had put together could be of value to, well, we talk about people get hired here, right? Whether they're DOE or politicians or whatever, or executives, and they don't fit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it could be helpful.
And some of them don't want to fit.
They don't want to fit.
Yeah.
Don't need fit. Go.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay here.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's really interesting about becoming local, or whether that's a possibility or not. Yeah. Now, we're all in our 70s now. So to me, it means we're sharing an age, at least those of us who have survived so far, we're sharing at an age in which our bodies are gradually breaking down. The 70 plus body is not the same thing as a 50 plus body, not the same thing 30, et cetera, et cetera. And I watched a video that you shared called 61 Years Young, right? And in this video, you were certainly the Chris Leong that I've seen running around neighborhoods, running up mountains and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, I understand that recently or fairly recently you had your own kind of health issues. I wonder if you could talk something about that, if you don't mind.
Sure. When Carlene called me and asked me if I'd, participate in the project, I was pretty reluctant. But I started thinking about, well, this could be kind of interesting, because I almost croaked. And I told her that story over the phone, and she kind of went, whoa, really? Yeah. I said, yeah, really. And so anyway, when I was thinking about it, this actually kind of fits, because what happened on Halloween night 2020, I got wheeled out of my hospital in an ambulance. And I was hallucinating because I think I was on morphine. And I don't quite remember. So I got up in a hospital in Kaiser, and there's a nurse. And she says, oh, Chris, a Filipino, you okay, you okay? And I'm wondering, who the hell are you and where am I? Because I was kind of nuts, right? And then I'd fall asleep and I wake up again. And so when I got up in the morning, I was told that I had multiple myeloma, which is cancer. And then I had congested heart failure. I had kidney failure. I was anemic. I had 5 broken bones in my back. And I had pneumonia, which could kill me at any time. So I was screwed up.
Wait, Chris, back up, because I don't understand how you go from 61 years young to the condition that you're talking about.
Yeah, good question. How did that happen?
What was it?
Well, I had my father and 3 of my brothers died of cancer.
Okay.
And 3 of my older brothers all came down with cancer around 70.
Okay.
And so I came down with cancer when just a month and a half before I turned 69. Wow. So is this karma? Is this genetics? Is it self-fulfilling prophecy? Or maybe a little bit of each. But anyway, I was lying there in the hospital, called my wife up. I was, get me out of here, man. Because it was like one of the worst days of my life. So I was there about a week. And I guess they had to have me on painkillers because I had 5 broken bones in my back.
But all this happened at once?
All at once. Well, a few months before that, I'd be playing tennis or something, and I'd go and try to retrieve a ball.
Yeah.
And I just had trouble breathing. I thought, something's not right.
Huh.
And so that's when they thought I had congested heart failure.
Okay.
And I guess other things. So they say multiple myeloma could be actually be going on for about maybe 10 years before you finally get hit. That's what I've heard. But I'm pretty good now. I came down your stairs.
No cane, no nothing, and
I'm really lucky in that today I'm not in pain, but I had a little pain. I was really. There was one night when I was standing there, and it was interesting. I was just standing, and something hit me, and my thought was, "Oh, okay, this is suffering," because I felt like every cell in my body was screaming, and I stood there, just I guess like paralyzed. And my thought is, okay, this is what it really means. And then it kind of went away, and then I went on. Huh. So it's really been an interesting experience.
Well, tell me what you've learned from it. I'm thinking, okay, the Chris that runs up hills, and then the Chris that's in the hospital for X number of days and in pain, etc. Like, connect those Chris's for me.
Well, in our early 20s, I don't know if you guys remember Lawrence Brown. He was a classmate of ours. I was at his house, and we were sitting there having a primo, whatever. And he pulled a book by a guy named Paul Brunton, who was a philosopher, and it's all about Eastern thought. So he kind of introduced me. So I went home, and I pulled it out, and you read a paragraph, and it takes you about 5 minutes to read a paragraph trying to figure out what he's trying to say. Anyway, so he introduced me to Eastern thought. So I started looking at things, and the whole idea of body, mind, spirit, and emotions. So, and one of the things is when you look at it, spirituality, you're really not your body. Even though people would think I'm very physical, I've always been aware that, the physical body is an aspect of who we are, but so is the mental and the emotional. And so I've always believed that. So now at age 69, I got nailed that, no, I'm not my body, because I couldn't even move. When I came out of the hospital, I would lie in bed. I would not move. I couldn't. I had, they cemented my back but I was so screwed up
Yeah.
that I could barely move. And to get out of bed in the morning, it'd take me like 45 minutes or so because I would move and my body would spasm with this cramp. And I was in so much pain, I'd stop, then I'd move again and move until I finally made it out of bed. And so that went on, luckily, that went on for like 3 weeks. And I didn't take meds, I took Tylenol because I'd taken oxy. I didn't want to take oxy, and I took morphine, that made me crazy. So I took Tylenol. And so it's kind of like gutting it out. But luckily, in 3 weeks, the pain stopped. And ever since then, I'm not going to say pain-free because my back is uncomfortable, then I go and lie down. But I don't push it. So I guess the point you asked me, what did I learn? I'm not my body. I'm not my mind. I'm not my emotions. It's, whoever Chris Leong is now, I'm really a spiritual being along with everybody else. So there's a belief system that got supported at age 69.
That you had been nurturing even prior to this crisis.
That's what I believe. And now I can put to the test. Like,
right.
Okay, because, I was very active. I could do pretty much anything. Well, I can't do much now.
Yeah. I mean, just again, do you think being able to do, quote, just about everything at 61, did that give you a kind of arrogance? Like, this is a body that can live forever?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No. I mean, the part of me knew that it's all temporary.
Yeah. Okay.
It's going to go away at some point.
Right. So you think what pulled you through that crisis was this kind of core belief system that you had been developing, nurturing, or?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think, the people wanted to come through. I think that, the biggest factor they pull me through is I'm lucky I have a lot of friends. And a lot of friends that say, hey, Chris, I'm going to pray for you or whatever. And I call it juice. And I think I had a lot of juice coming in my direction that propelled or pushed me through. Because they said the cancer like 90%. And, like I said, congested heart failure, kidney failure. I don't have any of that. I don't take any meds now. I'm on.
What?
I take a multivitamin and I take vitamin D and Tums for cancer. A year ago, this meds they put me on, when I came back from the mainland, the doctor said, we want to put you on the meds that we had you on. I said, no, you're not. I'm not gonna go back and take that stuff. So maybe we'll give you a little lighter dose. I said, okay, let's try that. But I was kind of reluctant, so I took it. And these meds, they whack me out, man. It's like, I take these meds and I'd be okay that day. The next day I'd be wiped out. I couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
I'd force myself to take my son to school, come home, fall asleep. And when I say I was totally useless, I had no energy. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't read. But do you read? No, I don't read. And I couldn't even turn the TV on. So then maybe a day or two go by, and I know my energy's coming because I could turn the TV on. I mean, how much effort does it take to watch TV, right? So I was wiped out.
Yeah.
I couldn't do a thing. So even little things like, go brush your teeth or get up and I couldn't do a thing. So last year, I told the doctor, you know what? I want to get off this stuff, man. So she said, okay. And I've been off over a year now, and I've progressively gotten better. And my counts have gone down. She was concerned about this protein that it indicates you might have cancer, and that those numbers were going up a little bit. She said, I got to watch this. Those things have gone down. So the idea that the meds, chemo, immunotherapy was going to help you, I'm not so sure that's always the case.
Right.
So in my case right now, I'm not taking anything. Now, is that going to last? I don't know.
And if it doesn't?
Well, maybe cancer comes back and maybe I croak. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, given this experience, can you just say something about your approach to both death and life?
Well, just tell some people, I'm kind of curious about death right now.
You mean the actual experience of it?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. One of my good friends, I think it was her, she does, she calls soul retrieval, and she's a Catholic nun. She was actually the CEO of the Franciscan Sisters, so it's a huge organization.
Right.
And I talked to her on occasion. I called, hey, Joanne, tell me about death. Because what she does is she goes and talks to the dead. Now, some people might think I'm crazy, but I think it's very possible. So she says, every soul or entity that she's spoken to said it's pretty good. Not bad.
Oh, you mean death?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's on the other side, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she said, it's like when you're on this planet, you're looking through it. She said either a keyhole or a pinhole. That's what you're seeing. She said when you cross the veil and you're on the other side, now all of a sudden you see everything. So you asked me about death. I'm kind of curious now.
You make me curious.
Yeah. And the other thing I would add, when I was in the hospital, this was during the election, 2020 election. So I was really curious. Well, I thought Biden was going to wipe out Trump.
Right.
And then I heard 70 million have voted for Trump. I said, let me die. I said, and I don't care who hears this, who backs up Trump. I said, if that many stupid people, then the dark side is so strong. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, because this planet, people think the consciousness is rising. I'm not sure, especially the state we're in right now.
Sure. I mean, I share some of that belief. But the idea, I think in some ways it's a very broadening and maybe enlightening one that, what we're seeing in life is maybe a pinhole, right?
Yes.
And that crossing over to another side is a broadening of that.
Yes.
And with a kind of, again, I'm not the nun who's spoken to the dead, but it gives you a kind of optimism, and to me sort of takes away fear, because this is simply another step. Right. Last question. I want to ask you something that, and I got this from something that you said, you talked about two experiences when you heard a voice. Now, Chris, and we're putting drugs and alcohol aside, but tell me about two experiences when you heard a voice. Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm all ears.
The first experience was when my brother came back from college, and he was kind of like my idol. So he would go to church. I was not a big church guy, but I was like, I don't know, 9, 10 years old or so. Okay. And we're standing in church, and he said, stand up, and he was singing a hymnal. And I had a cold or something, so I was really dizzy. And so I heard him say, hey, if you're dizzy, sit down. So I sat down because I thought I might faint. And then when the hymn was over, he sat down. He says, why do you sit down? I said, well, you told me I can sit down. And so that kind of threw me off. So at a young age, like, well, who the hell is talking? So it made me curious.
Were you scared?
Nah.
Or just curious?
No, just curious. Like, I don't know what happened.
Okay.
The second story is I like to go to Vegas. So I'm walking down Vegas on Las Vegas Boulevard outside of Stardust, and there's nobody around. It's like 10, 11 o'clock at night, just cruising down the street. And I hear this voice, and it says to me, the reason for your existence is to learn to love and be loved. And I look around like, well, who the hell said that? There's nobody in front of me, nobody back, but 20 or 30 yards. So where did this come from?
But you clearly heard a voice that said this.
The reason for your existence is to love and be loved. So like, okay, I mean, I've read that before. But where did that come from? And the third experience was, I was in a sweat lodge in North Dakota, some good real McCoy Indians, and we were sitting there, and I did not like going in that sweat lodge, man. And I read something about Indian, how uncomfortable, and it can be really uncomfortable. It can be super, super hot. And one of the things I read, you could die, all this kind of stuff. So it scared the hell out of me. But I went into that lodge, and in this case, I prayed for one of my nephews who was kind of, he was troubled, So instead of focusing on me about how hot I was, how I was perspiring, I thought about him and what if there's anything I could send him that would help him. And so when I got out of the sweat lodge and I went up to my friends, one of the toughest guys, I said, hey, that was really kind of nice. I really kind of enjoyed it. And they started to laugh because you're supposed to enjoy the sweat lodge. But I didn't know that. And so what I learned was when you focus on yourself, you're screwed. You are screwed. So life, I think, needs to be focused on others. That can sound weird, but you try to help others. But if it's all about you and your suffering or your pain or whatever, you're going to be in bad shape. So those are my 3 stories.
Well, I love those stories. Really, thank you for sharing them with us.
Oh.
Thank you for sharing your juice with us. Who knows where we are even today, tomorrow, etc. But it's just, I think it's such, I think, an important lesson for us to think through that there are people who we can rely on for their juice, their wisdom. And, I really want to thank you, Chris, for sharing yours today.
Well, thank you.
Thanks so
I'm
much.
honored you guys actually picked me.
Of
to
course,
do this.
of course. How could we not include you? But thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
And we'll see you at the reunion. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Mahalo for listening. This has been Punahou, a talk story podcast by, for, and about us, the Punahou class of 69. I'm your host, Cristiano, with production help from Carlene Tani and Sue Au Doyle. I hope that listening to these interviews might prompt each of us to reflect on those pivotal experiences and insights that make up our own lives and to share them with families and friends. This is our responsibility, our ongoing legacy. So until next time, ahui ho.